History remembers empires, but it forgets the people beneath them. This story does not begin with kings or crowns. It begins with silence, with land taken quietly, with voices punished for speaking truth. For centuries, ordinary people were told to obey, until one question changed everything. Why? Empires were not built overnight. They grew slowly through careful control over people's lives. Power did not rely only on soldiers and weapons, but on systems that shaped everyday reality. Ordinary people worked the land and built cities, creating wealth they would never own. As empires expanded, taxes increased while basic rights quietly disappeared. Education was kept limited, ensuring knowledge remained in the hands of the few. People were trained to obey authority rather than question it. Fear became a daily presence, influencing choices, dreams, and behavior. Losing land was called law, and punishing truth was called order. At first, these experiences felt personal, as if suffering belonged to individuals alone. Over time, people began to see the same injustice repeated everywhere. They realized their pain was not accidental but carefully designed. That realization marked the moment when the first chains began to weaken. Control was maintained not only through force, but through fear and division. Communities were kept apart so they would never unite against power. Religion, tradition, and law were often used to justify inequality. Voices that questioned authority were silenced or erased. Yet resistance began quietly, in small and ordinary moments. A teacher shared forbidden knowledge behind closed doors. A worker refused to accept humiliation as destiny. Writers spread ideas that traveled faster than soldiers. Markets and homes became places of whispered conversations. People discovered others shared the same anger and hope. Isolation slowly turned into connection, and connection began to form strength. The shift from silence to resistance was slow and painful. Early attempts to challenge power often ended in failure. Leaders were arrested, movements were crushed, and fear returned stronger. Empires used violence to remind people of their place. But every act of repression left a deeper mark. Those who suffered became symbols others would remember. Stories of courage traveled even when people could not. Anger slowly replaced fear. Ordinary people began to organize not as rebels but as communities. Farmers, workers, and thinkers found common ground. Shared suffering created shared purpose, and purpose began to weaken the empire's control. As resistance grew, empires faced pressure they could no longer ignore. Some rulers offered small reforms to calm the growing unrest. But these changes arrived too late to restore trust. People no longer wanted relief. They wanted dignity. They demanded a voice in decisions that shaped their lives. Tension filled streets, homes, and public spaces. Hope and fear existed side by side. When uprisings began, they were fueled by years of silence. Revolutions were not sudden explosions, but long-awaited releases. The fall of old systems was chaotic and uncertain. Many sacrifices were made without any promise of victory. Yet the belief in absolute power had already collapsed. The fall of empires did not mean the end of struggle. Power changed hands, but its nature often remained the same. Freedom was not a reward. It was a responsibility. New nations were built on the sacrifices of ordinary people. Many heroes never saw the world they helped create. Their names faded, but their courage remained. History moved forward, shaped by lessons written in pain. The cycle of power and resistance continued in new forms. Crowns disappeared, but authority found new faces. Each generation faced its own chains to recognize. The forgotten truth was simple and timeless. Real power has always belonged to the people. The story does not end on these pages of history. It lives in every voice that refuses to be silenced. In every question asked when injustice feels normal. The past whispers warnings to those willing to listen. Empires fall, but choices remain in human hands. Silence strengthens power. Courage challenges it. Change begins long before revolutions are named. It starts in hearts that no longer accept fear. History remembers moments, not comfort. The future is shaped by those who dare to stand. What comes next has always been a choice. And that choice belongs to the people.